Sure.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. It has been an active and eventful few days, but this is nothing new for the women and men of the NYPD. Because every day, in every corner of this city, our dedicated officers are out there working to keep every New Yorker safe. But as we saw over the last weekend, this work can extend beyond the 5 boroughs. And when it does, we are ready. Because we're ready, and we know that the challenges of modern policing require relationships to be strong. And we consistently prove that they are. On every level, local, state, and federal, we all serve the same public safety mission. And we know how vital it is that we rely on each other, especially now. Every day, we are dealing with threats that can originate anywhere and target any one of us. We know that violent criminals do not concern themselves with precinct borders, jurisdictional boundaries, or state lines, and we can't be restricted by them either. So we work together, share information openly, and learn from each other. That's how we face the challenges before us, how we get better at what we do, and how we keep people safe. After all, that's why we're all here. That's the reason we became police officers and public servants. But as I'm sure every law enforcement agency would agree, nothing in our profession is accomplished alone. It takes many dedicated people from both the public and private sectors, working in those close partnerships to get things done. The 2 cases we're going to talk about today are perfect examples of this. So it's important that we take this opportunity to recognize all those who made these recent arrests possible. Every member of the NYPD, from SRG, CRC, NCOs, and all of our patrol and investigative resources, and high praise to the Detective Bureau, who worked tirelessly to search for these violent offenders. Chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, Robert Conti, who has been an invaluable partner of the NYPD in this and many other endeavors. John DeVito, the special agent in charge of the ATF's New York Field Division, who was with us on this from the very beginning and every step of the way. And our colleagues and friends from the FBI, who provided additional resources which were key to these investigations. We also need to thank the United States Secret Service, who helped us track the MoMA stabbing subject to the Philadelphia area, and Commissioner Danielle Outlaw and everyone at the Philadelphia Police Department for the work they did in pursuing and apprehending the subject last night. Then we have to thank the support of the New York City Police Foundation, including President and CEO Susan Birnbaum and Chief Financial Officer Isaac Rothbart. Anytime the NYPD and the people of New York City need them, they are there. And the last few days were no exception. We sincerely appreciate their constant support. Thank you. We asked for their assistance, and along with the mayor's office and others, they went to work putting together the reward money we offered last night. The foundation has been and will continue to be a vital part of what we do, and their work has made our city safer for over 50 years. Finally, I want to speak about the absolutely instrumental part the public played in these investigations and arrests. When we held a joint conference in DC last night, we asked for the public's help, and the response was extraordinary. The tips we received through Crime Stoppers and other outlets led us directly to contacts, movements, locations, and a name. It was the perfect model of focused, intelligence-led policing, and highlighted the public's fundamental role in keeping us all safe. Public safety is a shared responsibility. We all have a part to play, and in these cases, everyone performed them perfectly. 2 cases, 3 cities, 5 agencies across multiple local, state, and federal jurisdictions, 48 hours of investigation, and now 2 arrests. Chief of the NYPD, Chief of Department, Chief Ken Corey, will now provide some further details on these investigations and arrests. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. In both cases that we're talking about here today, since Saturday night, the NYPD has used an all-hands-on-deck approach. Precinct neighborhood coordination officers and other patrol resources were deployed. Critical Response Command and Strategic Response Group personnel had their focus shifted. Investigators pushed the pictures of the suspect to more than 36,000 NYPD smartphones. We attempted to make contact with the population of people experiencing homelessness everywhere in New York City, which was no small feat. We informed them of the shooter that was targeting them. We urged them to go to shelters and of the services available to them. We showed them pictures of the shooter, asking them if they had interacted with him or knew who he was. Detectives were relentless in their pursuit of video, which enabled us to disseminate clear images to the public, who were ultimately instrumental in identifying the perpetrator wanted for these unspeakable crimes. The Chief of Detectives, James Essig, will now brief you on the details of these investigations. Chief Essig.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to brief you on 3 investigations that are fairly new. So the first one's on Saturday, March 12th at 4:15 in the afternoon. 2 employees of the Museum of Modern Art were stabbed. We were quickly able to identify the perpetrator as a member of the museum. Due to his disruptive behavior, he was banned from that location. He is identified as Gary Cabana, a male white 60 years old of 255 West 43rd Street. He had no prior criminal history. We put out a be on the lookout alert, a BOLO alert, to all law enforcement agencies. Yesterday in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, an arson was located at a Best Western hotel. The Philadelphia Police Department responded, and after a short canvass found him sleeping nearby. I want to thank the Philadelphia Police Department and the U.S. Secret Service, who got involved when threats were made against the former President of the United States, Donald Trump. Both services were very instrumental in this apprehension. He has been taken into custody, and we are waiting extradition and the arrest warrants to bring him back to New York, where he will be charged with assault 2 for these incidents, assault 3 for a previous incident, Manhattan, where he punched a previous employee, and an aggravated harassment where he's sending threats via email. Our second incident is an elderly female assaulted. This occurs on West 23rd Street between 8th and 9th Avenues on March 10th at 8:25 p.m. Our complainant is an 87-year-old female who was walking down the street when a female with long curly hair, a black jacket, crossed the street and pushed the 87-year-old female in an unprovoked, senseless attack. That's her right up there. A short time ago today, our complainant died from her injuries. We're asking the public's help in solving this disgusting and disgraceful offense committed against a vulnerable, elderly female who was doing nothing but walking down the streets of New York City. So please, anybody with any information on this person or whereabouts, call 1-800-577-TIPS. Before I go on into our last case, I'd like to thank the Police Foundation. They are a true public-private partnership with us. And whenever we ask them for anything, they always are ready, willing, and able to help us. With me right now is Chief Hank Sortner of Manhattan South Detective Investigations, Thomas Galati, the Chief of Intel. Finally, I'd like to bring you up to speed on a homicide and non-fatal shooting of our 2 homeless persons. But before I go on, I'd just like to say how grateful and proud myself and everybody up here is of our New York City Police detectives. From arresting a serial killer last week to investigating homicides, shootings, and stabbings, in addition to other non-high-profile crimes, they come through time and time again. And this is just another example of why they are called the greatest detectives in the world. So I'll begin with the timeline of events as we know them. I want to caution everybody, we do not have anybody under arrest in New York City or for any of these incidents that occurred in New York. This is still a very, very active investigation. So in Washington, D.C., on March 3rd, March 8th, and March 9th, 3 homeless men were shot, 1 fatally. At 3 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, March 12th, we have our person of interest in Manhattan. At 3:30, we have a picture of him at Pennsylvania Station that you see here. At 4:30 in the morning, patrol's officers responded to a man shot at 56 King Street. Our victim is a homeless man who woke to pain of being shot in his forearm. He mimics calling 911, and our perpetrator flees. 1 .22 caliber shell casing is recovered. The perpetrator is described as a male wearing all black. At 6 a.m. at 22 Howard Avenue, another homeless man is sleeping on the sidewalk. A male dressed in black Puma sneakers, black jeans, and a black face mask shoves this victim, produces a handgun, and fires multiple times, striking him fatally. Here is the video of that, and as you watch, you're kind of taken aback and you're shocked that someone can commit such a jarring act against a defenseless person. 5 .22 caliber shell casings are recovered at that scene. Between the hours of 7:57 and 10:26, we are able to determine that our person of interest is in Lower Manhattan. At 6 a.m., March 12th, our victim from 22 Howard is discovered and a 911 is called. He is pronounced dead on scene. We immediately realize it is the same perpetrator in both instances, based on a .22 caliber, homeless men, the same clothing description, and close proximity to each other. All NYPD resources are mobilized. At approximately 10 p.m., the NYPD holds a press conference. We release descriptions and circumstances of this event. A sharp detective in Metropolitan Police Department, who is a former Queens resident and who follows us on social media, realizes it's the same person of interest in their 3 shootings incidents in Washington. At 5:20 hours in the morning, March 13th, less than 24 hours after fatally shooting a defenseless homeless man and wounding another, our person of interest is back in the District of Columbia. Shortly thereafter, a Sunday morning, the Metropolitan Police contact the NYPD. Information is exchanged and the ATF is requested to help. By 2 p.m. that day, it is confirmed that all 5 instances, the 3 in D.C. and the 2 in New York City, are a match and are a ballistics lead. From that moment on, the cooperation and exchange of leads between the NYPD, the Metropolitan Police Department, the ATF, and the FBI Fiber Task Force was extraordinary. Earlier today, the Metropolitan Police Department, along with the ATF, took a person into custody. He is being charged with crimes committed there. Investigation into these incidents in New York are ongoing, and we are working with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office to bring these horrible crimes to a successful conclusion. Any New Yorker who recognizes this person who has any information can please call us at 1-800-577-TIPS. With that, we'll take any questions.
Steve, just by nature of some of the details here, are you aware of how he transported himself from D.C. to New York and back, and how this arrest was eventually effectuated
As to how he got here, we're looking at all avenues. We suspect it's public transportation, either by train or bus, but, just by the fact he's in Penn Station at 3 in the morning. As far as how we made the arrest, extraordinary coordination, and we were in contact almost immediately after our homicide at 6 o'clock. So the exchange of information between all law enforcement agencies brought this to a successful conclusion. We are still working on ours up in New York.
Was it one critical tip that went into DC police, or how was the...
There were multiple tips. There were few Crime Stopper tips to DC and to us that were very instrumental in this.
Nicole?
Chief, can you talk about whether or not this individual has a history within the NYPD, criminal history, or being looked at for any other crimes?
Right now, the two in New York, the history in New York, he doesn't have a history in New York. He has multiple contacts with police in various states. We have all law enforcement throughout the country are looking at their cases to see if there's any matches with that. The ATF is looking through the different regions. We had a conference call with all major police chiefs throughout the country. We advised them of what we had and to be aware of this and look at their cases.
Tina, you're close.
Hi, congratulations first of all on the arrest. And secondly, who will be handling this case moving forward, the DC case? Will be the feds because it crosses state lines, or is that clear?
The Manhattan District Attorney's Office will be handling us down here.
I think you'll have a back here. Obviously, the timeline.
Well, we don't have enough to make an arrest. We're working with the Manhattan District Attorney. We're gathering all our evidence. This is 2 days old, 48 hours old. I'm very confident we'll get there, and when we're able to, we'll announce an arrest.
Tony, Newsday.
Chief, did the suspect in Washington make any statements that implicate the New York incidents? Or did he make any statement whatsoever?
That would be Metropolitan Police would make that. We've sent New York City police detectives down there as part of our investigation.
Ashley, New York Times.
Hi, Chief Edward. Likewise, congratulations. Getting this case wrapped up in 8 hours from the press conference to the arrest and out of the custody in DC. There was reporting that you all received the name of the suspect as a tip. Can you tell us whether that was a single tip or more than one tip? And if that person suggested that they had seen the photo from the press conference, or how, and if it was someone in law enforcement or a civilian?
What I can say is we received Crime Stopper tips. The same Crime Stopper tip was into the District of D.C., Washington, D.C., and we vetted all our Crime Stopper tips, and this one proved to be the most fruitful.
Can you tell us about the volume of tips that you received after last night's press conference?
Yeah. Yeah. Just since last night, we're vetting over a dozen Crime Stopper tips.
Martha?
What can you tell us about the motive and the gun?
Well, as far as the gun, there was 22 caliber shell casings found at all scenes.
Ghost gun?
Right now, Metropolitan Police are executing search warrants down there. They haven't recovered the gun as of I know. But once we recover it, or if we recover it, there'll be workups on that gun.
Rockwell, Daily News.
Chief, is he a drifter of sorts, and is there anything in his past, or even more currently, let's say on social media, that suggests a motive, that suggests a bad encounter with a homeless person, a reason for doing this?
As of right now, we haven't. We're still working through that. He has no connections to New York, as far as we can see. He's mostly a D.C. guy and other states down south. We don't have any connection to him as New York, but as the investigation continues, we might figure that out.
And then the other homeless man who initially was thought to be shot, I believe, it was on Sunday evening.
Yes.
Has that been ruled out?
Yes, that's been ruled out. He succumbed to other medical conditions.
Morgan?
Can you confirm the suspect's identity, and what makes you guys confident that the DC shootings and the New York City shootings are connected? Is it surveillance footage? Is it tips?
Well, the gun is connected, and then based on photographs, same clothing. He has the same distinctive Puma sneakers. He has the same black pants. He has the same mask in the connections. That's why we're connecting him. DC has arrested him for their 3 incidents. We have him as a person of interest in ours, a very good person of interest, and we will continue to work our case.
If the ballistics and all the descriptions match in both instances, why is that not enough to make them a suspect versus a person of interest, or to
Well,
arrest them here?
he's a suspect in our cases. Strong person of interest, and we'll be working through that.
Why is it not enough to arrest him, though?
We're working with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office in homicide cases, very high-profile cases. They're on board with us. We present them with all our evidence we have, and then we make an arrest.
Brent, CNN?
Can you comment if a gun was found on him in the arrest?
Not that I know of.
Shana, Washington?
Do you have any, outside of his criminal record, do you have any insight into his background in terms of what he may have done for a living? A relative, I think, told the reporter that he had a serious mental health.
No. I don't have any information on that right now. Our New York City detectives who will be going down there and be part of the interview process, which we will bring into our case.
All right, guys, we have time for 1 or 2 more. Anybody else? Rocco?
Well, Chief, without any New York City connections, any idea as to why he came here? Was he seeking attention because of the big stage, that sort of thing?
You know, I think anybody who does that, you've seen the video, just going up and indiscriminately shooting somebody sleeping defensively on a sidewalk, bothering nobody. They got some serious issues. I don't know what they are. Hopefully, when we bring him into custody, we'll find out.
All right, we're going to finish up with Tina right here.
Can I ask you about the 87-year-old woman? Do we know who the woman is in the photograph yet? Have you guys ideas?
No, that's why we are asking the public's help. That's horrific. An 87-year-old woman just walking down the street, knocked to the ground, and today, unfortunately and sadly, she succumbed to those wounds. But please, get that photo out.
All right, guys. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.